All right, so we're starting Module 2, the study of tissues, the introduction of the whole idea of tissues. And as we had introduced, tissue is all over the body. And so we're just going to jump right in. Notice Module 2. Oh my, gotta lose this thing. Did you want one of these? You good? All right. Jacob, are you there? Jacob, can you hear me or not? I think he's there. Jacob? I wouldn't blame him if he's not. All right. The tissues that I'm reading from page 1. The tissues that make up parts of the body allow those parts to do their jobs. So a tissue is a group of cells that are specialized for a particular function. As we will see, all of the various organ groups have particular tissue, and of course it overlaps. Extracellular material sometimes surrounds cells that constitute tissue. That extracellular material we're going to find to be very important. We will look at that as we go. There's 4 types of tissue. So there's epithelial. That is the linings of the organs, and it forms glands. It's on the surface of the skin. It's the lining of the mouth, the stomach, the thyroid gland, the pancreas are just a few examples of epithelial tissue. Connective tissue is used to connect, surprise, one thing to another. Also, support, cushion, insulate. So, you know, sadly, I've got lots of connective tissue to sit on right there, all right? But it also keeps me warm in the winter. So, connective tissue is bone. It's cartilage. It's the stuff that connects muscle to bone. It's tendons. And it's fat. So we'll see how connective tissue is. And surprisingly, we will find that there is connective tissue in blood too. We'll look at that. Nervous tissue makes up the brain and nerves. It allows different parts of the body to communicate. And then finally, muscle tissue is designed for contraction and causes movement. So there are your 4 types of tissue, which, as I've said all along, and we'll do the digging deep as we go into each specialized organ system, but the tissue that makes up those organ tissue systems, very often the tissue overlaps in terms of some of these things, but we will build on it as we go. So let's look at a few definitions. In terms of epithelial tissue, cells form 2 surfaces. They have a free surface, which is, if you're, you know, the free surface in terms of here on the floor is the carpet. All right, the very top of the carpet. So it is the outside surface of a cell. That's what we'll describe it. The free surface is open to its surroundings. So that's what we'll simply call the free surface that. I wonder if there's a better definition in the back. But that's as good as anything if you understand the generality of it, and there is not. So free surface is the external surface. The basal surface is the one on the underside of the free surface. All right? It would be, if you're familiar with carpet at all, it would be the pad underneath the carpet. All right? All carpets, well, most carpets either come with or have an extra pad underneath. That's what the basal surface would be. And then the basement membrane is the glue that attaches the basal surface to whatever it is on below it. So the basement membrane is on the bottom. Was there? Yeah, there. Turn over, would you please? So there in figure 2.1, in a simple squamous epithelium cell, you see what we're talking about. The free surface is on the outside, the basal surface there is in the middle, and then the basement membrane is depicted there in that little brown layer right below the basal surface. So while we're at it then, in terms of a couple general terms that we will use throughout our discussions. Vascular refers to blood cells, all right? I'm sure you've heard that term before, but that's what it does. It refers to blood cells. Both the basement membrane and epithelial tissue are avascular, which means they don't have blood. There's no blood supply delivered to them. The tissue to which the basement membrane is attached has blood vessels which release oxygen and nutrients which diffuse across the membrane. So that's how they get their nutrients and their oxygen, is through diffusion across that membrane into those cells, all right? But there is no direct feeding by virtue of vessels. Epithelial cells die at a rapid rate. Remember, one of the epithelial cells we described is a skin cell. And you know that you're sloughing off skin all the time. All right, exactly. And if you get a sunburn, you know what that means. All right, because you'll start to peel fairly quickly. Classic epithelial dentures are slipping. Classic epithelial cells are categorized or classified by the number of layers and the shapes of the cells that make up those cells. So in terms of layers, or as Shrek said, layers, so ogres are like onions. They have lots of layers, all right? Well, that's what some epithelial cells have as well. So, but a simple epithelium doesn't. It's one layer of cells. Look at figure 2.1, and you see that's what we're talking about. It's just one layer, all right? Stratified epithelium have several layers. In fact, that's what the word stratified means. It means layered, all right? Squamous cells are flat, generally flat, and squamous literally means squatty. And cuboidal cells, epithelial cells, are cubed shaped, as the name suggests. And then columnar, surprise, has to do with the fact that these things are column shaped. So let's look at them in terms of their pictures, and I think we can do this before, we've got 5 minutes, and I think we can do this. So simple squamous epithelium are one layer. They are flat. They're used for protection or complex tasks. Excuse me, not used for protection or complex tasks. Their function is to allow diffusion, that's blood vessels and air sacs of the lungs, down deep where oxygen and carbon dioxide are exchanged in the blood, and so the lungs are lined with these simple squamous epithelium. And again, you see the illustration of the lung tissue to which that thing is attached, the basement membrane, as we just discussed. But let's keep moving. Page 2. Simple cuboidal epithelium are one layer. That's why they're simple. They're cubed shaped, however, and they have more room for mitochondria and Golgi apparatuses and endoplasmic reticulum to allow for diffusion, and they're used for absorption and secretion. So the kidneys are, for the most part, made up of simple cuboidal epithelium. And so look at the depiction there on page 35. You see they kind of look like cubes. and they're extended. And comparing that to the cells from figure 2.1, the simple squamous, you see they've got a lot more room for extra cellular function. Turn over another page. Simple columnar epithelium. So that would be one layer again. Simple is one layer of column-shaped. And so once again, in a taller cell than the cuboidal, there's even more room for cellular machinery to do more complex secretion and absorption. They contain goblet cells that produce mucus. So the stomach and the intestinal lining produce mucus to protect it from acid. The fallopian tube lining has cilia and mucus to move an egg along the fallopian tubes towards the uterus in order for that egg to become fertilized. And then finally, stratified squamous epithelium. There are several layers of flat cells. That's that squamous word again. Several layers. They form the epidermis. That's the top layer of the skin. The lower cells are called the basal cells. They're near the basal surface, and the purpose is to form barriers against absorbing too much water, against pathogenic microorganisms, and ultraviolet light. So your skin is an important protector of you, and as the advertisements always remind us, it's important to take care of it, not expose it to too much UV light and these sorts of things. Basal cells in the skin are dividing by mitosis. As division takes place, skin cells get pushed upward. Older cells are pushed further upward, where they eventually flake off at the surface, and these cells are actually dead, forming keratin, and that is the covering of dead cells. Those are the ones that take on the color, as a matter of fact. The keratinized membrane is dead because the basement membrane is avascular. It again diffuses oxygen and nutrients that don't reach upper cells. Moist, stratified, stratified squamous epithelium. If you, surface cells are still alive because they're covered with mucus. Epithelial tissue of the mouth are alive but less active because they receive less oxygen and nutrients. So, let me do these last three, and then we'll sort of review when we start up next time. Stratified cuboidal epithelium and stratified columnar epithelium are uncommon. They offer protection and tend to be used for secretion. Stratified cuboidal in the salivary glands. Stratified columnar are found in the larynx. Stratified transitional epithelium, they're transitional or intermediate. They offer good protection. They're multi-layered. It stretches to form. The urinary bladder is an example of that. And then one more. The pseudo-stratified epithelium. I thought there was a picture. Yes, there is a picture of that on page 39. It looks like there's stratification in these things, but there's actually not. All of the cells touch the basement membrane, but some of the cells are shorter than other cells and do not touch the free surface. And so that's why it can't be described as simple, but it is pseudo-stratified. They possess goblet cells, they possess cilia. Mucus traps particles in the air. The cilia move the particles out of the airway, a cleaning function in terms of the lungs and actually other places. We huffled, and I did not do that justice, so I promise I will introduce that as we review, and we will finish next time too. And then we'll be caught up and not have to huffle at all in the future. Well, if there's questions about any of this stuff today. All right, well, I have your test.